future. Any newborn that comes into this world gets a bullet to the head immediately. That's because humanity has achieved immortality. But with limited resources, those in power made a rule: if nobody dies by accident, no new humans can be born. The irony is that we achieved eternal life, but the price was snuffing out billions of new lives that would have come after. When having a baby becomes a luxury, is this kind of immortality really worth it? If it were you, what would you choose? To keep the population in check, the government formed specialized kill squads to deal with people who break the breeding laws. I'm part of one of those squads. Today I got a tip from a concerned citizen reporting illegal children in a building. The moment I heard, I grabbed my team and headed over. But when we kicked down the door, the place was filled with rotting garbage, and the vegetables in the fridge had gone so moldy. See, in this immortal society, the powers that be ration out daily supplies based on head count to limit resource consumption. If someone has an illegal kid, that's another mouth to feed, but the rations stay the same. So these families usually live in total squalor. What's even crazier is that once an immortal person has a kid, they lose their immortality and age rapidly. But even knowing that, people who are sick of living forever still choose to have children. The team member who'd arrived first was reading the procreation ban to a hunched-over old woman. But the old woman just said they were only trying to survive. They never meant to hurt anyone or take more than their share. The team didn't care about any of that. With her were two pale, skinny kids. They'd been hidden in the house since birth and had never seen sunlight, so their skin had this sickly white pallor. The woman begged us to spare the children, said she'd give her own life if she had to. But no matter how much she pleaded, I raised my gun. Because in this immortal society, having kids is the ultimate sin. After I dealt with the two children, I quickly left the slum. But wouldn't you know it, I ran right into the father coming home. The moment he saw the enforcement squad, he knew what had happened. His eyes went bloodshot and he charged at us in a rage. The outcome was predictable. We shot the man dead on the spot. His blood splattered on the wall like some sick joke about this pathetic immortality. Watching what happened to this family, my heart skipped a beat for some reason. But I didn't dwell on it. I just got in my hover car and left the slums behind. By then, the rich folks had already moved their homes up into the clouds. When I got back to the wealthy district, I changed into a sharp suit and went to my girlfriend's party. Alice was radiant on stage, her skin flawless, looking just like a young woman. Every move she made oozed charm. Nobody would ever guess this pop star had been alive for hundreds of years. To Alice, trading away something as useless as the right to reproduce for eternal life was the happiest deal imaginable. She even joked around with me, saying if we hadn't been born in this immortal age, she'd have married me and even given up her career to have my kids. While she was making these impossible promises, she didn't notice the change in me. I looked down at the child's blood still on my hands and questioned my work for the first time. Does this kind of immortality really mean anything? Looking at these young bodies hiding old, rotten souls, my heart started aching. Thinking about the boy I'd shot earlier that day, I suddenly felt like so-called immortality was just another prison. The next day, I went with my girlfriend to the Immortality Medical Center. Turns out even immortal bodies break down. But with treatment, once that special drug gets injected, the wrinkles on Alice's face from aging started disappearing right before my eyes. Within minutes, she looked pristine again. Soon, we were heading back to the rich district. Alice, all rejuvenated, wanted to have sex with me right there in the car. But that little dinosaur toy, the same one from before, stuck in me like a thorn, constantly reminding me of that child. I couldn't work up any interest. I made an excuse about having a mission and went back down to ground level alone. Ever since I killed that kid, I couldn't focus on my work anymore. Images of that child kept flashing through my mind. In a daze, I noticed the logo on the bottom of the dinosaur toy and followed that lead to a children's toy store that nobody visited anymore. In this age, where breeding is banned, I thought it was weird that a place like this even existed and there was actually someone shopping there. When the woman saw me, she looked terrified and bolted out the door. I knew something was up immediately, so I quietly followed her to a rundown shack that looked ready to collapse. When I got closer, sure enough, there was a little girl inside. This woman was clearly another illegal breeder, and she was living just as rough. Even though I discovered her secret, I didn't make a scene. I gestured for the terrified woman to sit down. I wanted to ask why she'd give up immortality and a comfortable life to have a child in this dark corner of the world. Facing my question, the woman just glanced at her kid, and a loving smile crept across her face. Turns out she'd been alive for over 300 years. In all that time, she'd experienced everything. Everything she wanted to have, everything she wanted to try, she'd done it all. But her life was infinite. She went from the initial excitement of gaining immortality to eventually going numb. She gradually felt life losing its meaning, and the more she lived, the more miserable she became. It wasn't until her child was born that she truly experienced the joy of being human. Looking into those clear eyes, she knew her numb, meaningless life had found continuation in this child and was bursting with vitality again. The child's first words, first steps, first fall, they all became the most precious gifts in her endless life. Her life had meaning again. The little girl had never left the house since birth. When she saw me, she got curious and wanted to play a game with me using a straw hat. Just as I was bending down to play with her, the woman suddenly lunged for my gun on the table. With my training, she didn't stand a chance. Hearing the child's heart-wrenching cries, I ultimately decided not to hurt them. But my colleague who'd followed me had already seen everything. Looking at my partner and hearing the crying behind me, our guns went off almost simultaneously. In that final moment, I found the answer to the question in my heart. I chose to protect this mother and daughter, turning against my own team. In my last moment of life, I was finally free, finally escaped from this prison of immortality.